Your name?
What up, I'm Sammy.
Sammy?
Yeah.
No, I'm actually, to be honest with you, Sammy, one of the reasons that I'm down here is that I'm friends with a couple of people from the university here. I am a missionary, not full time. I have a real job. This is my passion. Oh, you don't want a blank card. You may not want a card at all, but I'm going to give you one anyway.
Thank you.
I am a missionary in Southeast Iowa, Northeast Minnesota. I do a little bit of work in Southwest Wisconsin as well. I do a lot of campus work. Do a lot of other public stuff as well. But I actually had watched the video that somebody posted from Tuesday, I think it was, where the other guy was here, and it broke my heart because I do believe that public evangelism like this is extremely important. It's the way the early church did, not all of it, but a good portion of it. But I'm not gonna. I don't believe in calling people names. And so, do you come from is it Sammy?
Yeah.
Do you come from a Christian background? Or?
Yeah, I identify as Christian still, but I think a lot of other Christians wouldn't say I'm Christian anymore. So
Tell me why you think that. I know you probably got class together.
Nah, I don't have class for like an hour. Because I support gay marriage. I support pro-choice options, and the reason I do so is because often we in the Bible we think God is truth, God is light, and as much as that is true, we don't live in a world where that is. So I often think God is gray, and so the reason I'm pro-choice is if women are dying, I don't think that's a good option. And since the church isn't willing to support birth controls, it's often like a mix. Well, depending on what church.
What kind of church background do you have?
I moved around a lot, so I've attended Baptist church, evangelical schools. I've been to a Lutheran church a few times, but I just say I'm non-denominational.
All right.
So some churches I went to were like no birth control, and other churches I went to were like, oh yes, this is good.
So I want to appeal to a couple things to you, Sammy. First of all, I would have been a lot like you. How old are you anyway?
Oh, I'm 21.
Excuse me. I would have been a lot like you in some respects. I was raised in a very conservative Christian home, very consistent as far as where we attended, but I was pro-life. But I was always pro-life with exceptions. So endanger another's life, a case of rape, or a case of incest. So I want to appeal to something besides that issue, and I want to appeal to something besides the issue of homosexual or gay, what you call gay marriage or whatnot. I want to appeal to a moral, an internal moral compass. Okay, so. You know that it's wrong to lie, right? You know it's wrong to steal. You know it's wrong to commit adultery. You know all those things. I don't have to tell you that. You know that stuff. Why do we know that's true? Is it because we're taught to it by people, or we're taught that by people, or is it because, for a lack of better terminology, there's kind of an innate sense inside of us that says, when you get caught taking a cookie the first time and your mom said, and maybe this never happened to you, but it's something like that. You got caught taking a cookie for the first time, and mom's like, well, Sammy, why did you take the cookie? And you've got the cookie all over your face, and it's on your hands. The cookie crumbs are spread out on the counter all in front of you. The cookie jar lid's off, and you have the audacity to look at your mom and go, what are you talking about? As a 3-year-old, you're not going to talk like that, but I didn't take the cookie.
Yeah.
It wasn't me. You're lying. And in your heart, you may not, in your conscience, subconsciously you're lying. Your conscience on the surface may not recognize that. And your heart may not go, oh, I'm going to lie. But you don't want to get in trouble, so what you're going to do is you're going to lie to get out of the trouble. The reason that happens is because God has written His law on our hearts. And so that's how you know those things that are good and bad, right and wrong, evil and righteous, whatever terminology you want to put on it. And so what I would appeal to you in this sense is not so much how you were raised, but have you ever come to understand how high and holy God is and why Christ had to die. And so if I were going to ask you, if I wasn't a believer, and I'm going to ask you what the gospel is, what do I do, or what do I need to do to be saved? What do I need to know to be saved? What would Sammy tell me?
I would say first you need to work on who you are. You need to find like your balance, like what your like your own beliefs are, like how you feel about things, like first, and then you need to read the Bible. But that's a lie. I hardly read the Bible nowadays. But you need to figure out what you and your relationship with God is going to be and how it's going to look, because it's not the same for everybody. Because I find just talking, like praying, is what's best for me, and thinking about like my actions and consequences, and like just, I don't know, talking about it with God. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it makes sense.
And then because like having my own time with Him, if that makes sense, because I found like doing like trying to copy someone else's devotionals just didn't work for me, because they were like, oh, you need to do this to be a good Christian, and it was just like, ooh, I don't know, like for me reading the Bible felt very distant in a lot of ways, because we were reading King James version for a while, so it was like, I don't even know what half these things mean. So like
most of the people who do that don't know what half of those things mean.
So then I think I moved to NIV version with like there's so many different versions, just a newer format of it.
Yeah, I know what that is.
And so yeah, and then like, I don't know, just figure out what your beliefs are and like what your relationship with God is going to look like.
So here's what I'm going to say, and I don't mean this to, it's going to sound mean, and I don't mean it to sound mean.
Well, you've been very polite so far, so
I don't
you
mean
can
it
be
to sound
mean.
mean. So no, I shouldn't be. The scriptures tell us that we should show ourselves friendly. And if anything's going to be an offense, let it be the Word of God. So, Sammy, what I'm about to say to you, I say to you out of love for you as a fellow human being, as someone who's made in the image of God, and that image of God is broken in you because you're full of sin, like every other person. So what I'm about to say is going to probably sound really mean. And it's not meant to just be mean. It has a purpose, okay?
Well, from talking with you from this first 5 minutes, I presume you're probably going to be like, your relationship with God is broken, or you're not a Christian.
Your relationship with God is broken. But I would challenge the idea that you've actually been born again. Not because you're pro-life or pro-choice, or because you're pro-gay marriage. I would say those things are products of a misunderstanding of your relationship with God. Now, people say, well, not everybody has a relationship with God. And I'm like, well, do you know every law enforcement officer in Cedar Falls?
No.
But you have a relationship with them. It's either hostile or positive, right? And so that's the case with every single person in the world today. Every single person who's alive has a relationship with God. It's either as a child of God, having been bought by God through the cross of Christ. Christ purchased people through His redeeming cross, through His blood, through His propitiatory sacrifice. Big fancy words, I like throwing them out there. Makes me sound smarter than I am. Or they're His enemies. And a lot of people out there, Matthew chapter 7 teaches us that many people are going to come to me on that day, and they're going to say, Lord, Lord, did I not do all these wonderful things? Didn't I feed, and I'm going to use modern terms, didn't I feed the poor? Didn't I defend the oppressed? Didn't I help the homeless people? And He's going to say, get away from me, I never knew you, you workers of iniquity. And what He means when He says that is those of you who are full of sin. Now, who's not full of sin? Right? Everybody's full of sin. The reason He says that is because not everybody who says that they belong to Him has ever actually genuinely been born again. And that's what I was reading before the crowd started to die out and a few guys came up to talk to me. It was John 3. It was the first time we see Jesus talk about, being born again with an individual. He's talking to Nicodemus the Pharisee.
I do think it's hard to go, this is going to sound bad, to go back to a church, especially since my beliefs are so hard within, like, how I feel, I don't know. So the reason I stopped going to church was I didn't feel like my questions were getting answered about people and sin, and like, and how Christianity looked at other religions, because I felt like there was a lot of, and when I say racism,
bigotry,
yeah.
Bigotry.
And it's just this, like, I don't feel like as Christians we could, like, I don't know. There's like a lot of feelings, and I don't know how to phrase these in my head because they're
You
difficult
got a lot.
thoughts.
I can tell you have a lot of struggle.
It's something I think about often, and as much as like, because last week I was even like, I would love to go back because that's what I miss. I miss the community, but at the same time, it felt like when I was having this relationship with church and God, it was like the church was like, you must believe this certain way and do it this certain way, and that was like, but how do I have this one-on-one relationship with God when you're telling me how to do it? Not that you have been, just like what the church has done.
I understand what you're saying. What you're saying makes perfect sense. And there again, and know what I said a few minutes ago, it seemed pretty heavy, but a lot of what I'm hearing, Christianity is not about being conformed to the image of other people. Christianity is not about being conformed to the image of a particular church body. Christianity is about being conformed to the image of Christ. We read that in Romans chapter 8, that those who he's called,
Can I ask a silly question?
Yeah.
How do we conform to something? This is a very much an atheist statement. We can't see, we can't touch, but we see his acts, if that makes sense. That's a lot of the
So I'll use the analogy of law again earlier. Okay, can you see law?
No.
And I'm not talking about Christian law, moral law. I'm talking about like legal codes and standards that are So you can see a stop sign that says speed limit's 65 miles an hour on the interstate, right? But you can't actually see the law, right? Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we are conformed to the image of Christ in a spiritual sense when we submit ourselves to his teachings. So we can see him in here, and then we're conformed to that. And so what I was saying is, you're not called to be conformed to the image of other Christians. You're not called to be conformed to the image of a particular church. You're called to be conformed to the image of Christ. And then God uses sound churches with sound doctrine and sound Christians to help you in that. And so any church that says you have to do, now there are things that you have to be born again to go to heaven. There's no equivocation on that in true Christianity, and Jesus himself says that you cannot enter into the kingdom of God unless you're born again. But any church that says, well, you can't wear this, you can't wear that, and there again, there are standards. A truly moral Christian, when I say moral, I'm not just talking about world sense of morality, but a Christian woman or a Christian man who genuinely is desiring to follow and pursue God, there are certain things they're not going to do. They're not going to wear lingerie out in the public, you know what I mean?
Can I ask another silly question?
You're not asking silly questions.
How do I know that, like, I don't know how to phrase it. I'm sorry.
You don't have to apologize.
My image of God, or like, because you already said, like, oh, I'm not, like, my relationship with God is broken, but let's say if I fix it up, things are looking better, that we're at the same, like.
So how do we know we're seeing the same God?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the age-old question that even genuine Christians have been wrestling with for years. So how do I know that the Word of God is true? And there's absolutely nothing that's going to ever convince you of that apart from the Holy Spirit. There's, I could point to passage after passage after passage of Scripture. 2 Timothy 3:16 says, for all of the Scriptures are breathed out by God. It literally means that God breathed that inspiration into the people who he inspired to write it and carried them along in the writing of it. And I could read that to you, but until you have had that encounter, when I don't mean necessarily physical encounter, but until you've actually encountered the God who is high and holy, who is the one who gave us the eternal law, what some people call the Ten Commandments, until you recognize that you don't deserve his salvation. And that's part of the problem, especially in the United States today, Sammy, is that a lot of people...
out of curiosity, if I were to tell you, is like, I honestly don't believe that, like, I deserve his salvation, like, right now, like, because I honestly don't believe I do.
You're in a good place then.
But at the same time, I guess I'm not at a good place because I'm not willing to change some of my stances about how we move in this world, because as much as God is light and truth, I don't know how, and we're supposed to bring it. Oftentimes that's what we're told, bring that truth and light with you among this gray world. But at the same time,
I'd say the world's more than gray.
They're colorful. What do you mean?
No, the world is dark. The world is full of darkness. I mean, all you have to do is look around on any given day and see it.
I fully agree with the what you're saying about darkness.
Let's use your abortion position, and not your position, but let's just use the conversation about abortion. Would a world that is not dark and full of evil ever need to abort babies?
Can I ask more questions? I'm not trying to fight.
Not bothering me.
No, I would say, would a world ever have a world where it was look, why? I guess this is a question. Why is premarital sex sin? I guess that's because I get that it goes into lust. It's a greed. It makes you feel good, if that makes sense. I totally get why it's a sin, if that makes sense. But I don't
why would God say it's a sin?
Yeah, why would something make us that's so good be a sin? And obviously it could lead to good things, if you are married and kids.
I think Sammy, and that takes us back to the law question again.
I'm sorry that we're going in circles.
No, you're not. Trust me. I've had people actually intentionally try to run me in circles. So
I'm definitely not.
No, you're asking good questions, and I appreciate that. But so here, and here's the part where it's going to sound really hard again. Here's the part where everything you're rebelling against, or everything that you're saying, is a rebellion against what God is saying.
Yeah.
And God says, I have told you, you shall not commit adultery. And so the question is well, how do you define adultery? And Jesus in Matthew chapter 5, 6, and 7 in the Sermon on the Mount goes on and starts to give us definition of what it means to commit adultery. And he said, you've heard it said in days of old, thou shalt not commit adultery. But I tell you, if you so much as look with lust, you've already committed adultery in your heart. The reason why God, and I can't give you an exact, I know for a fact that here's what God had in mind. But God's eternal moral law is thou shalt not commit adultery. And here's what I tell people all the time, because God does not commit adultery.
And then I guess
so he doesn't lie, he doesn't murder, he doesn't steal, he doesn't worship anything other than himself.
Can I ask some more dumb questions? If God
no, you can't ask dumb questions, you can just ask regular questions.
This has always been on my mind. If God doesn't murder, then what about the flood? And then I wish I knew more Bible facts on the flood, and then when Egypt, Moses,
right. So and this is gonna get us somewhere actually, asking that question. Well, God doesn't. If you say God says it's not okay to murder, why did He destroy the world with the flood? Because God is God, and He has told people don't sin. And actually, you missed it before you came up here.
This is gonna sound so stupid, but it's because He makes the rules. He can change it off and be oof.
He doesn't change though. God is an unchanging God. The scriptures refer to Him as immutable. In other words, God is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So when He says thou shalt not murder, it's because He doesn't murder. And so when God takes someone's life, and in the case of the flood, God, the part that should make us wonder is not why did God kill what was ostensibly millions of people at the time. It could have literally been millions of people. When God took their lives, He would have been completely justified in taking the lives of Noah and his wife and his children and their wives. So if we really want to think about it, He would have been at that point in time completely justified, but He did something that we don't understand. He showed mercy on mankind. He showed mercy on humanity, and actually showed a little bit of grace by saving Noah and his sons and their wives and Noah's wife, and allowing the human race to continue, even though the human race actually deserved His wrath because they had done nothing but sin. And it says in chapter 6 of Genesis that every intention of the human heart was only evil always, and God saw that, and He looked on it with disgust, and He said, okay, I'm going to crush them. And He had a right to do that. He had an obligation because He's just.
Okay, not to sound stupid, I'm so sorry that it keeps
saying stupid.
But if I was a God and I was ooh, I hate these, I hate that my creations are full of evils, but I'm gonna save a few to make sure to show them that I truly do love them. I'm sorry, but that's just it's like you said, it's something we can't ever understand why. And so for me, I guess that's the issue, is the trouble coming to that understanding. And then just Oh, science is another good example. I think the term is like there's old world and new world.
Old Earth and New Earth
Yeah,
creation.
and new Earth is the one where it's like, oh, the Earth is actually 4.6 billion years old.
No, actually, the young Earth creation view would say that the world's between 10 and 6,000 years old.
So, I don't know. Like, I don't know.
So
like,
why is there such a disparity?
Yeah.
And why do some Christians say, oh, it's millions of years, and others say it's not?
Like, I don't know. I just...
Things like that.
Yeah, I don't know. There's just, like... I guess that's another issue. I'm sorry that I'm just like,
No.
oh, here's this topic that I...
See, all of these things, and I know, there again, this is going to sound like pretty cutting, and I don't mean it to just be cutting, but all of this stuff, these things that you're asking, they're legitimate questions. It doesn't bother me that you're asking them at all. I love it when people ask questions. One of the things I said when I got started was, if you have a question, if you disagree with me, please.
Also, thank you for not talking down to me, because a lot of times when I do ask these questions, it especially feels like, oh, well, this is why. Why don't you know this? You're silly.
There's so much that I don't understand. I would be a fool to treat you like I'm better than you, because I'm not. The only difference between you and I, honestly, I think is probably saving faith in Christ. And I know you're like, well, no, I am a Christian. I think what really is going on, Sammy, and I mean this humbly, I was like that until I was 33 years old. I would have told everybody I was a Christian, but I was doing all sorts of things I should not have been doing, according to God, not according to a church standard, because I was actually, the church I was in, I was keeping all their standards. I wasn't going to movies, wasn't listening to secular music, I wasn't drinking alcohol, wasn't doing, I wouldn't play cards, I wouldn't do any of that. So I wouldn't go to a movie theater, I wouldn't do any of that stuff. I wouldn't do it. I was keeping all their standards, but I was still lost. And Sammy, what I think you got going on inside of you, he says, I know you for the message of the gospel. I know you know that God sent his son in love to take his wrath on the cross for sinners. I know you know that because you've been going to church your whole life. I know you know that. But I think what's going on is that you're where I was until I was 33 years old. You're wrestling with where am I really? What do I really need to know? And how am I ever going to come to an understanding of who God is and who I am in the eyes of God? And you said something earlier that I really appreciated. You said, well, I don't think I deserve God's salvation. And I told you that puts you in a really good position compared to a lot of people who are actually call themselves Christian and would not have these, who would maybe agree with me on things like abortion and agree with me about whether or not, two men or two women can be married. They might agree with me, but they're in a worse place because they think, well, I'm saved because I do all these really good things.
No, I just...
And you don't think you deserve it. And so where you and I would agree is that you're right. You don't deserve it and I didn't deserve it. Because if we deserved it, then it's not much of grace, is it? So Paul says in Ephesians chapter 2, he says, for it is by grace that you've been saved, not of works. Because if it's works, you get to brag about it. And so there's a lot of people out there who think they've earned what God has done by saving them, and you don't think that.
No, I definitely feel like heaven is something unattainable, like it's a gift, if that makes sense.
It is a gift. It's absolutely 100% unattainable.
I definitely feel like, I don't know, but like the Holy Spirit, God has been talking with me, because like I have had thoughts where it's like, oh, maybe I should go to church again, and like I've discovered like other, like I don't know, maybe you've heard of this, but like the reason I use God is grace, there's a term, I don't know what to call her. She's not like a pastor, but she is someone on YouTube who talks about God and religion and how it molds, and it's very like humbling in a way, like how we're having this conversation but through like a digital media. Her YouTube channel is God is Gray, and like that has been bringing me back close and bringing these thoughts again to be like, oh, how do I understand religion and me? So I definitely feel like I'm glad you're on campus today, because instead of that other dude who was just yelling at us.
I gave you my card, right?
Yeah.
Do you do social media?
Yes, but I would still consider you a stranger, so I don't add people on Facebook.
I actually have a ministry page. That's my the YouTube, not the YouTube channel. There's my Facebook not on there. I got to get my new cards made. Actually, you can look me up on my ministry page. It's the same as the YouTube channel. Because I know people down here that I can connect you with that are going to get you into a church where they're not going to talk down to you. or they're not going to treat you like garbage, or they're not going to treat you like you're a piece of dirt.
Can I ask another silly question? Can you still...
You haven't asked a silly question
Can you
yet.
still be Christian and believe in pro-choice? Can you still be Christian and say, I support LGBT marriage? Can you still be a Christian and say that, like, women should have rights to their own bodies? Like, and when I mean that, like, sexually, and I get that it's an adultery sin, but, like, can we still say that and be like, oh, I don't support this for myself?
I think it's very possible for a person to be a Christian and have unbiblical views about things, because every single Christian, if they're going to be honest, has something that they're going to believe, or something that's not perfectly in line with the scriptures. So when I say that, that's not to say that you can't be corrected. I believe you can have wrong views, but if you're truly born again, if you're truly a Christian, you will want to know what the scriptures actually teach. You will want to know what's actually going on and what God says about it. So could we sit here and work that out in a matter of 10 or 15 more minutes? No, there's no way. And I'm not saying I don't want to talk to you, but there's absolutely no way we can work something like that out, because it's something that's going to take a lot of discipling. It's something that's going to take a lot of talk. It's something that's going to take a lot of work, because issues like that are hard and they're heavy, and we have to strive to know who God is. We have to strive to know what He wants of us, what He expects of us, what His expectations for us are. And if we're not doing that, then we're never going to grow, and we're never going to learn. So could I say that would it possible for someone to be born again and then still be pro-choice or pro-abortion or pro-LGBTQ marriage? Yeah, because things aren't going to change overnight.
Another big question.
And let me finish this thought.
I'm so sorry.
No, don't apologize. Just let me finish this thought. You're not going to change overnight, but I think a person who's genuinely born again is going to grow in their knowledge of God, grow in their knowledge of the scriptures, grow in their conformity to the image of Christ, and over time those positions are going to change. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Totally. Can I just ask like a few yes or no questions, like
Yes.
without like big description? Because like I like without like not as, I don't know, that may sound really rude, just like your hot takes on things, like with people who are LGBT. Do you believe that they're making the choice to be LGBT, or that they were born that way?
You said you're going to ask yes or no questions.
I know, but you can say yes, no, and then go. Sorry.
I will give you the briefest yes or no answer I can to that question. I believe everybody is born with a propensity to sin. Some people are born with a propensity to sin certain ways that others aren't. And
then, what do you think about churches that are like supportive of LGBT people? Like, I think there's a Methodist church that down the street who is very...
I would tell you that Ephesians 4 tells us to speak the truth in love. If you know something's a sin and you won't tell somebody that they're doing something that's sinful, then you're not really loving them. And that doesn't matter what the sin is. I don't care if it's adultery. And that's any sex outside of marriage is adultery. And then God gets to define. And I know this probably sounds really hostile, and I don't mean it to.
No, it's totally okay. Like, you've been totally respectful throughout this entire time. So give me these hot takes.
Any definition of marriage apart from how God defines marriage is not marriage. And so I don't think it's loving for us. I don't care what the sin is. If I know a guy is, the Bible calls drunkenness a sin, and drunkenness is a lifestyle of getting drunk all the time. If I have a friend who's getting drunk all the time, oh, don't worry about it. Jesus loves you just the way you are, and I never challenge him on his drunkenness. Do I love him?
No.
Right.
I don't know. I just have so many questions because we're in college. I'm in college, so I take a lot of classes. So like when we look at
outside of college.
When like we look at these things, because I took LGBT studies and we looked at like different religions and things like that.
I use breath mints so I don't offend people.
Oh, you're totally good. I don't know. The Bible was written by man too, and so like, how do we know?
How people view it.
What do you mean by that? Sorry.
Do you ever write letters by hand anymore?
I write letters to myself, or like letters to like.
Or journal or something like that.
Yeah, I don't send them
so
out.
when you're writing that letter by hand with an ink pen or a pencil, is it pencil writing it or are you?
I'm writing it.
You're writing it, right? So men were used by God as the instruments by which he recorded his word for us. So did Paul write the book of Romans? Yes. Did God write the book of Romans? Yes. Did God use Paul and Paul's personality to say what he wanted to say in Romans? Yes, but God still wrote it.
Okay, so sorry, I'll have like 3 more questions because then I have to go eat lunch before my next class, but I might be back later if that's okay. Or
Absolutely.
you can be like, oh no.
Sammy, you're not bothering me.
I guess my next question
I wouldn't be doing anything right now. There's nobody around. So.
If God lets use these men as metaphorically pencils is what we compared them to.
It's a horrible analogy, but it's the best one I have.
It's okay. I get what you're saying. Like, we misspell words all the time. Well, I misspell words. I'm very dyslexic, so how do we not know that Paul was like, ooh, this is what I think he's saying. Like, how do we, like, or like telephone. Sometimes when you talk to someone, you're going through a tunnel and like, ooh, I think I caught that.
And that is a question that people have been struggling with for a long time, and I could literally get into a biblical science. It's called textual criticism.
I've never heard of that.
That takes us back to the original text of Scripture, where we've actually recovered the vast majority. Well, I think in one way, shape, or form, we have recovered the entire Bible in the original letters. So, when I say the original, I mean going back to the early church where they're actually finding the earlier and earlier manuscripts, and they're all lined up with what's taught.
And
now,
then,
so there, and that's literally a religious science. It's not a farce. It's not like somebody invented it. There's an entire branch of Christianity completely devoted to the historicity and the anthropology of Scripture. So.
And then,
which is why I want you to get a hold of me if you feel comfortable after talking to me of reaching out to me. 1, I would love to be able to plug you into the group of people that I know down here, and 2, I could point you to resources with people who you would be able to not converse with, but watch and listen to. Since you like to use video, you would be able to watch and listen to at your leisure.
I just, from this conversation, I'm just definitely scared, like, that, like, what happens if I am unchangeable? Because the way I feel now, I just do not, like, because you said you were very similar when you were 33, before you were 33.
Yeah. I got saved at the same age that Jesus died, so there's nothing mystical about that. I just think about it a lot.
Like, how, because I'm a sinner, how do I look at the world from this conversation that we just had? And I just think, I think I'm a lost cause. And
are you still breathing?
Yes. So that wouldn't make me...
Your heart still beating?
Yes.
Then you're not a lost cause, Sammy.
But I just, it's from where I feel morally and God feels morally. I don't know. Thank you. I definitely might reach out to you if that's okay with more questions.
I will definitely might.
Yeah.
Definitely maybe. No, I would love to talk with you again, and I'll leave you with this because I know you got to go eat so you can get to class. The way, if you are really questioning where you are with God and whether or not you're gone too far gone. As long as you're drawing breath, you're not. The biggest thing is I point to the cross all the time, is cast yourself at the foot of the cross and ask God to forgive you. Plead with Him for forgiveness, because He promises that He who has begun a good work in you is faithful to complete it to the end. Cast yourself at the cross. Beg Him for mercy. Beg Him for grace. Beg Him for the forgiveness that He provided only through Christ, and say, Lord, I know I don't deserve what Jesus did on the cross. I know that I didn't deserve to have Jesus absorb your wrath on my part on the cross. I know that I deserve hell. I know I do, because I'm a sinner like everybody else. But more than that, I'm a sinner in a sense. I'm a worse sinner than everybody else, because I know I'm a sinner, and right now I don't want to do anything about it, but Lord, I want to be forgiven. And you go to Him in that way, Sammy, and He promises to forgive you. He's going to give you a new heart. He's going to mold you and shape you in the image of His Son. And He's going to put people in your life, maybe guys like me, or maybe a young lady like me, way, but maybe a young lady like you who is like me in that they're a believer and they're willing to walk you through some of the stuff and be there and be patient. I know the people that I know down here well enough already to know that they're going to do that with you. They're not going to look down on you.
And then one more thing before I go, not about Christianity or anything. I know like you're recording and stuff. I don't know what you do with the videos. I don't like having any content of me online unless it's...
Your face probably is not even showing because I keep the camera down pretty low so that people's faces aren't showing. I have a group of people who oversee what I do. And they watch all of my videos to make sure that I'm not treating people poorly or negatively. And there's only like 43 people that even know I have a YouTube channel. So nobody follows me because I don't scream and holler at people, and so I'm not entertaining. So
yeah, I just like, unless it's something I can control, I'm always like, I don't like pictures of me online that taken by other people.
My son doesn't like to have his picture taken either.
So I just am like, ooh, no photos of me. Well, thank you for talking.
I record one so that I make sure I'm not doing anything wrong, and two, so that people cannot come back later on and say, well, he said this to me, or he did that to me, or
for your own safety.
For my own safety, especially in our society today.
No, that makes sense. So, well, thank you for having a polite conversation with me compared to
Please reach out so I can at least plug you into some people that can help you in a tangible way here in this area to wrestle with some of those. And if there's anything else I can do, there are going to be people praying for you.
And thank you for showing kindness, because the dude who was here yesterday was cruel.
Tuesday, I think it was.
Yeah, he was just like, I'm not a sinner, but it's like, dude, we're all sinners. Like, how can you stand up here and like talk to us?
That's why I'm here, honestly, is because I heard that he had been here, and I said I'm not going to let that stand. So
Brother Judd's crew is.
Yeah, I don't like them.
Pretty wild.
They're not real representatives of Christ. So.
And it's like, sorry, I promise I'll be gone in like 5 minutes. It's just like, because I watch a lot of news and stuff, it's like, whenever I go onto like watching protests and things, it's like I can recognize them. Like I think one of the dudes' name is Brother Mikael, and I was watching this show called, it's like a comedy show called Hate Thy Neighbor, but it's like,
I've heard of it, yeah.
They were down in Louisiana, and I'm like, I recognize like 4 of these people because they came to our school.
They travel around the entire United States, and that's their whole goal, is to do what they were doing, and that's not who Christ is, and that's not what he would have done. He would have said some things that, I mean, there were people that got angry at him. They tried to kill him numerous times. So.
And you told me hard truths today, and so.
I think I did.
Yeah, no, you're doing great. But like, thank you for just being kind and willing to talk to me compared to like the dude yesterday, where it was just like a spectacle. I keep saying yesterday, but Tuesday.
I know what you mean.
Well, have a good day. I might be back out here later.
See you
Thank
around.
you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.